And the feet, I'm not going to add any offsets to the feet. The only offset I'm going to add to the feet is the toes. So we get that little tiny bit of secondary slap down motion with the toes. And I'm going to delay those by pulling them forward so that so their action happens after the animation of the rest of the foot. So I'm going to grab all of my keyframes for my toe sections, making sure that I have the right controller selected. I'm just going to make sure I do have the right controller selected. In this case I do. And I'm going to grab these keyframes. Now these keyframes are just on the translate Y and Z. I'm going to select all the translate Y's and Z's that I can see. Just make sure I got them all, and I do. I'm going to grab all these and I'm going to offset them by maybe just 2 frames, and I'll see how that looks as we sort of scrub through. Now that's probably a little bit too excessive. It does look pretty nice though. However, I might take that back 1 frame, just make it a 1 frame delay. There we go. And if we play that back, you can see we've got that little tiny bit of delay happening on the feet now. Now I'm going to do a quick play blast of that, and I'm going to set my timeline to say 200. Maybe just watch it from the 200 point and see how that looks. It's sort of snapping up probably a little bit too quick, but so I might need to address what's happening there. So they're sort of coming along, and then they're snapping down. I might just do a quick play blast of that section just to see what it looks like. I'll just take it to about there, that'll do. We'll just watch that. Not the best angle for it, but just coming up a little tiny bit too much, so I might go to my translate Y's and just sort of focus on what's happening in that section. So they're coming on, and the rise is just happening a little bit too heavily, so I might just grab that rise on these curves, specifically for these front toes. The back toes I think are looking okay-ish. Okay, so I'm going to grab the front toe section there, so I'm just going to grab that. And making sure I grab both the start and end position because they're the same. And I'm going to just dial them down, just tweak them down a fraction. Might even just grab this keyframe, move it over a frame so there's a little bit more time, so it's not happening quite so quickly. And that's looking better already, so I'm going to do the same for this one. I'm just going to grab this information, roughly about 2, and we're going to have a look at this one in its translate Y. So this one's coming along, and the same snap's happening. So I'm going to grab this point here, move this down so it's not quite so extreme, and grab this point and move it over just like I did with the last one. And I'm going to work on the Z as well, because in this particular case, the Z is sort of flaring out a bit. do some of this. Let's grab this point just here and pull this back over to where it was. And I just pull that over. I just want to pull this one back as well. And that's a bit smoother. Still a little bit snappy, but that's okay. You can sort of go in and tweak these things as much as we need to later on. And that's all I'm going to do for the offsets on the feet. Just for the toes. The rest of the feet are pretty much the first course of action, so we wouldn't expect to see any offset on them. We might expect to see like maybe a 1 frame offset on the hips. So I'm going to just give it a try and just see sort of what it looks like as we do it. So he's coming along and he's going into that motion. So I'm just going to grab all these curves. I'm just going to offset them by 1 and then see how that turns out. So again, I'm going to come in and I'm going to turn my curves off. Make sure I have nothing selected, and I'm going to watch it from an angle that's relatively handy. I might even maximize the viewport so I get more bang for my buck, so to speak. More real estate, and play blast that. Alrighty, and that's not looking too bad actually, that little tiny bit of delay on the hip. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is just going to come back in and start delaying the rest. So I've done the hips, so I'm going to grab the top section up here. I'm probably going to add maybe a delay of maybe 3. I'll try 3 and see how that looks. So 1, 2, 3. And we'll sort of scrub through and see what that's like. So he's really sort of dropping down and squashing and then pushing himself back up. That's awesome. Okay. So we've gone for 3 for this one, so I'm going to do just 1 sequentially for the next 2. So for this section up here, I'm going to grab these and delay them by 4. And then grab this one and delay it by 5. And then we'll see what that looks like. And we can see we're really starting to get some nice action. I might go to 6 and see how that looks. Yeah, I like that better with a little tiny bit of extra delay. So again, it's time to come to the arms, and I'm going to grab both of these controllers for the upper arm. I'm going to grab all these curves and adjust them by maybe 3 to start with. We're going to come through and see how that's looking. Now, I've done those by 3, so I'm going to do the next ones by either 4 or 5. Try it with 5 and see how it looks. So the idea is that the arm should be straightening still as it sort of starts coming forward again, and in this case it is. But we could maybe go to 6 and see how that looks. What I might actually do is just increase these a little bit on their translate Z's. So at the point where they're so for this one, I might actually grab this point here and just tweak it up a little further, so that the arms sort of come up with a little bit more vigor. I'll do the same on the other one. In this case, it's going to be the 2 end components. So we should see a lot more floppiness going on there. Alright, cool. So we've gone to 6 frames with that, so I'm going to grab the wrist controllers and I'm going to offset them by a further maybe 2 frames, and we'll just see how that works. I'll grab all these, I'll set them to maybe 7, and we'll see how that looks as the character moves. I'm going to go one further to 8. There we go. Awesome. And now it's just a matter of sort of offsetting the rest of these things. So the shoulder drop's one of the ones that I'm going to want to have offsetted, and I'm going to offset that by probably roughly the same amount as this, which I believe was about 6 frames. So I'm going to grab these and tweak them over by about 6 frames, and then sort of see whether that shoulder drop's looking good. So again, might just do a little bit of a play blast. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to offset these by 6 frames as well. Basically grab all of these and offset them by about the same amount. And grab all these and offset them by their 6 frames. I'm going to save this scene, and we're going to do a play. And what I might do now is I might just do a play blast and see how that's looking. I'll turn off my curves, and let's just do a play blast. And we'll just go with 31 frames so that it loops nicely. Window, play blast. It's not really playing back super smoothly, but that's pretty much what we're after. So we might change my play blast settings actually. So I might do another play blast and change it to a setting that's more user friendly. Might go with cram, I guess. Go down to 50%. Frame scan, save the file. And I'll save it just to my desktop. I'll call it walk generic. And then I'm going to go play blast. Still a little bit of work that we could probably do on the toes and such. And now it's still not playing back very well, so I might increase I might see what the file size of that file is first actually. So I'm going to minimize this. And that's actually spat out a relatively small file size, so I might go ahead and increase the quality setting of that, and then do the same thing. Just going to play blast, yes, override it, and I'm going to close this down because it won't work if I have that open. Play blast, okay. Okay, so we've got this working, but Windows Media Player is not playing it back very efficiently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up in something that does play things efficiently, such as VLC. And I'm going to loop it. And that's not looping it very well. Yeah, righto. Let's try something else. Actually, let's just go back with RLE over it. Just work with that. Frame padding, frame at 1. Okay, play blast. Okay. And there we have it. And this is our generic walk cycle. And I might see how that plays in something else. I'm going to come to this file, see how big it is. It's pretty small. In this case, I might try and see how it goes in QuickTime. Probably won't work. I'll loop it and play it. And it's actually playing that pretty well. And then, like I said, there's some more work that we could probably do on the toes to make them a little bit less snappy, but apart from that, I'm relatively happy with how this has turned out. It's got a fair bit of weight to the character. Relatively well balanced, and it's not too jumpy, it's not too bad. Maybe a little over offsetted in some parts. The shoulders could maybe dial back to maybe just a 4 or 5 frame offset instead of the 6 that I set them all to, but otherwise it's looking pretty good. Okay, and that concludes the first tutorial on doing a walk cycle. Okay, welcome back, guys. Put some tunes on. No idea what this is. Whatever. Okay. So we're at this stage now where we've got the feet down. The feet are doing sort of what we want them to do. So now it's a matter of sorting out our arms. So in this particular example, I've got the arm controllers on a separate panel, but for you, you'll have to find that depending on the character you use, your arm controls, for FK at least, will be situated on the arms. So I'm going to do this relatively quickly. So position the arm back in that position. Let the arm go forward for this position. Actually want to extend that keyframe back a little further. Maybe do it there. And again, just going to do the same for this one. So on the backstroke, I'm going to have his arm at extension. And then on the forward stroke, I'm going to have his arm relatively bent up. And I'm going to do the same on the other arm, but I'm going to work with the curves on these first as we're trying to go through this and adjust our curves as we go. Turn that music down a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go into my curves. I'm going to focus on them. Let's translate X for that particular curve. And again, I'm going to weight these tangents, and what I'm trying to achieve here is just something that I've particularly noticed when I watch people walking and such, is that the arm tends to stall a little bit longer on the backswing than it does on the forward swing. So to achieve that, I'm going to grab my tangent handles on the forward swing. So from frame 1 is where the arms at the back and are starting to swing forward, and I want to delay that. So I'm going to stretch out these 2 tangent handles, and that will just hold it in this back position for just a little bit longer. So now my arm should swing forward, and then it's kind of stalled on that back position. I'm going to pull it back in just a touch, and then grab all of them, and then stretch them all out. So these bottom ones have a little bit more than this top one, but there'll still be a bit of stall at the front, which is what I want. That's what I'm after. And we'll sort of see how that looks. It's going to look a little bit weird with the front part of the arm not working properly, but that's what I'm after. That's kind of what I want. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the same for the lower arm. The exact same thing. And grab the bottom ones and just weight them out a little bit. And then grab the top one as well. Free that one's tangent, grab it also, and then weight them all out so that the bottom rung have a little bit more. Now if we watch this as it plays through, the arm's stalling at the back for quite a bit and then coming forward. It's just exactly what I want. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and do the same on the other arm. Now I'm not going to try and copy these keyframes over. If we have the controls on the arms like we did with the feet, then we could probably go ahead and do that, but because I've got this kind of a little bit of an unorthodox setup, I'm just going to go ahead and do it manually just for the hell of it. And on the top of it, it'll also add a little tiny bit of dynamicness to this walk cycle. It won't quite be symmetrical, have a little bit of asymmetry in it. Excuse me, just one second. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm going to swing my arm forward here, and I want to do it pretty much the same as what I've done on the adjacent arm. So I'm going to go with that for now. This rig has a habit of selecting random controllers when you middle mouse click drag on the timeline. It's a bit of a pain in the butt. Be a little bit more careful to make sure I have the right controller selected when I do my keyframes. Okay, so I'm going to pull his arm back to there, and that looks roughly about the same. Arm's coming about the same distance, which is what I want. And again, it's just a matter of going into the curves and adjusting them as I see fit. Now for this particular example,